Okay, Nelson, I think we are all set. So thank you so much for being with us today. We are trying to see how China fits in this new world of sustainability, clean energies. And one of the things that surprised me the most when I was living there, it was how fast the Chinese society adopted electric mobility. I remember it was maybe a decade ago that people started to shift from traditional bicycles to e-bikes, and then everyone was on an e-bike, right? And or the YY, the Guaidi, everybody was using the e-bikes. And then we started to see also some electric cars. And there was a big push by some local governments. I remember Shenzhen, for example, was the first city in the world that adopted and changed the whole city bus fleet, the combustion engine fleet, to an electric fleet. And I was very surprised about that. So my first question to you is, why and how? Why has China been the leader in this? Because we haven't seen that happening in other countries, even in Asia or in East Asia. I know you are you work in the US. The US has been very slow in adopting the e-mobility. So why do you think this has happened in China?
I think its primary reason is China is a government-run country. It has only one party. So it's like very unique political structure. Therefore, its economy strongly follows the government regulation. But this time, not like solar industry, which was booming, and then it was a disaster maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago in China. This time, China has really practiced the best way on the regulation to implement the electric mobility. First of all, I want to talk about the reason for this. Is the electric mobility has a brightest future due to the following reasons. Number one, it's end user facing game, because the electric vehicle, we're dealing with every single person who needs a car or a bike to travel from point A to point B. Second, it is an internet plus industry. Electric vehicle could be linking strongly with AI and big data because of the, the chip inside the car, and it can talk with other phones and desktops. So for these two reasons, it has a brightest future. And the third one is also important, is that energy, the form of the energy is actually electricity. Whatever it comes from, it will end up as electricity. And electric vehicle actually is electricity already. It has a storage, it has also the usage. So it will be the world's new oil. That's what I'm trying to say. And now I want to talk about China, how to implement user-friendly regulation, I would say, to encourage the sales. I mean, the sales of electric cars and electric bikes is for, I mean, I would say talk about two parts. The number one would be the they give the green light on the commute. For example, if you have an electric car in China, you can travel on every single day instead of being banned on certain days if you have a gasoline cars. And also you will have the car plate for bigger city like the Beijing and Shanghai, because right now if you are if you have the citizenship of Beijing or Shanghai, these larger cities, you want to get a new car, you have to go by lottery to get a plate for your gasoline car. But if you buy an electric car, you will for sure guaranteed to get a car plate for the city. So for these two reasons, which is a green light on the commute, is a great incentive for the end user to purchase electric car. This is number one. Number two is that the cash benefit, which the government brings in. For example, it has the lower taxes and also lower fees. Lower fees, for example, will be the gases because we're will be charged by electricity. And electricity in China is actually way cheaper than the developed country like Spain or the US. And gasoline in China is more expensive than the US, probably around the same as Europe. So we really care about the cost. But electric cars, we actually lower the cost. So for these two reasons, it gives a strong motivation for end users to purchase electric cars. There are three big Chinese companies, besides Tesla, everyone knows Tesla, which is NIO, Lixiang, and Xiaopeng for electric cars. And their sales has been doubled, even tripled, if you look at a year-to-year comparison.
Regulation and cost. Cost is a very important thing. And that's one of the reasons why people here in Spain don't buy electric cars. Infrastructure is another thing. Because in China, you have also developed a very good infrastructure for charging stations everywhere. So I'm wondering if you think the West should be having a similar approach to that of China, and how sustainable is this approach of China, because the government was already thinking about taking away some of the subsidies and some of the cash benefits, because you are already much forward, and electric vehicles, electric cars are much more common. There will come a time when the government says, okay, no more cash, no more benefits and subsidies for these vehicles. Will that be soon enough, or will that be at the right moment when people, the consumer, already feels and believes that electric vehicles are, good enough for their pockets, for their, it's a good cost, and it's, I mean, in the lifespan of the vehicle, because electricity is cheaper than gas, you will get back the money, so it's competitive.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. So you talk about infrastructure and cost. To me, like the end user, like me or any other person who want to buy an electric car, it's basically is what we call convenience and cost. So convenience is basically infrastructure. I don't really care about like those complicated words. As an end user, I care about whether it's convenient to use electric car, and also I care about the cost. So for convenience, you can see like some big car company like Tesla, they actually have their own charging stations, and they are growing. But for a larger portion of the industry, actually it will be the operator. Usually it's a utility company, and some solar company want to do this business as well. So these companies, they have a lot of cash, but they are lack of the, I would say, the knowledge on how to regulating enough electricity to the demand. So that's basically demand and supply question. And this is actually economic issue. Is that how much electricity I have to give it to people. And I also need to calculate how much electricity will the user request in certain regions and certain times. So that's actually a two-dimensional issue. That's actually a challenging issue because they have to figure out what's the cost for me to build infrastructure. But that's why how the government jump in. They actually have some policy. If you build infrastructure for electric vehicle charging, you will get tax benefits. I'm talking about corporate tax. And also you will get some maybe cheaper lands, things like that. I would say for any major like infrastructure innovation or disruption in this industry, the government has to play an important role to driving the industry player to on this. I mean, the government really sometimes they don't really care about why you can make money or not as an automaker. If you insist on producing the gasoline car, you will be charged for a big chunk of money. So it's really complicated. But as end user, what we really care about is convenience and cost. And convenience, as I mentioned, is really government control because they have to push the automakers or the operator to build more and better infrastructures. And the cost-wise, I think it's also the government regulation control, because right now, based on my knowledge, even Tesla, they are just they were very struggled making money. Now I think they are making little money, and the margin probably looking good. But for all other companies, they are probably losing money on this. Is that they are suffering on their cost, providing the cheaper price to the users, but the government is actually paying these bills. And I would say they have to start this way. But I believe that by I would say maybe 5 or 10 or even 20 years with the better technology, the cost will drive down. The major cost for electric vehicle actually is the batteries. Batteries actually probably the major factor we should consider to lower the cost. And as end user, what we care is also the cost. And I would say there will be a huge competition among these automakers, car makers. And I would say by years and years effort, they will lower the cost, first by the government regulation, and then by their own technology, innovation, their own competition. And there will be a fight. And eventually the cost will go down, because they have to, they are forced to sit in this spot to produce electric cars. And end user, we will enjoy their battle and then receive the lower cost electric vehicle.
I remember interviewing people in BYD in Shenzhen, and they already lowered the cost for their vehicles quite a lot.
Yeah.
You mentioned the batteries. The battery is the key component. Users worry that they may not use their electric car for very long rides. And now we already have cars, maybe 400, 450 kilometer autonomy. And China is being also a key point in the battery development. So I'm wondering, I wanted to ask you, what kind of technology do you think we will see in the future? Is it going to be solid batteries? What is it going to be that actually makes e-mobility not only sustainable, but also user-friendly and, everywhere? I mean, basically a kind of mobility that we can see everywhere in the world.
China actually contributes 28% of the carbon dioxide emission, which is the largest in the world. So China really care about this climate change issue by largely manufacturing lower cost, high performance batteries. And I think we're trying to make this happen. But in terms of battery technology, I do want to see the tier 1 battery producer or manufacturer is actually Japan, and maybe South Korea. Japan, like Panasonic, which Tesla is collaborating with. And South Korea, I think there are also several companies. So tier 1 is actually Japan, South Korea. And I think US and China, maybe tier 2. They are catching up. And in China, there's a company called CATL. It's a company in Fujian province. The full name is called Ningde Shidai. This company became the Tesla's supplier since last year due to their lower cost. And their quality, I think, has been improving. And so China has been really, pushing the better technology to catch up in this space. CATL is one example. You mentioned BYD. BYD is also, I would say, another great candidate. I think their technology is not as good as CATL. I would say maybe is probably right after CATL. Both these companies, they actually use the lithium ion type of batteries. And I think they're developing the solid state. But I would say solid state, I'm not a battery expert, but based on my knowledge, I think for solid state battery still has a long way to go. We don't see any commercial application for solid state. We don't see any products for solid state batteries. We only hear maybe there's a R&D report. So I want to say the battery technology is really time consuming in terms of R&D. And the solid state, I know there's maybe a team from Stanford, West Coast of US. They're a company called QuantumScape. They got an investment from Volkswagen. They are probably by far the company is getting the largest traction from the public. But we haven't seen any, I would say, tangible product on their solid state battery. So I would say it's still a long way to go. And in China, it's actually, I would say, worse than that. I would say maybe only one company called NIO. They public announced that they are going to release solid state battery maybe in the next 3 or 5 years plan. But that was just the same. We cannot say too much about that. So I would say it's still a long way to go. But solid state is a feature, as I mentioned, they have a very high power density. What that means, it provides the longer driving distance, driving range for electric cars, and which is a key, for the user experience.
My last question is about another key point of the sustainability, because it not only matters that you have electric vehicles, it also matters how do you generate the electricity to charge those vehicles. And in China, you have still a lot of coal, and I know you work on these systems, smart grid and so on. So just let me know, how do you think this is going to move towards? I mean, are we going to see more renewable energies? Are we going to see hydrogen, which, for example, we are considering in Spain very much as a power source?
Yeah. So the first part of this question, the smart grid. Actually, the smart grid consists of electric vehicle because the smart grid is actually a network consisting a bunch of energy inputs and outputs. And electric vehicle, that is actually the energy output for, I would say, the most case, because people use electric vehicle to consume energy. So that's energy output. The energy input would be basically the generation, like basically the electricity generation. We have traditional, like the nuclear power plant, or the clean energy, like the solar, wind, stuff like that. So this would be their, relationship. So smart grid consists of electric vehicle. And so I think along the way, looking forward, they will be actually bonded together, because we're talking about a system. And that system is called a smart grid, because we involve like clean energy. And I think this will be the future, that people use clean energy to produce electricity and drive electric car for the energy consumption. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. And the second question would be the hydrogen. You mentioned specifically in Spain, you guys focus on hydrogen. So hydrogen and both hydrogen and electric cars, they're, I would say, the by far the greatest candidates for the replacing fossil fuels because of their, the better environmental friendly effects. But they have difference. Hydrogen, they use hydrogen fuel, and electric cars use batteries. And the pros and cons, I would say, the hydrogen cars, comparing with electric vehicle, they have a longer range. It's about 1.5 ratio. So for example, electric cars have 200 miles driving range. Usually hydrogen cars has 300 or even larger. So larger range, and shorter fueling time, like 5 to 10 minutes, you get your hydrogen car fully, pumped. But for electric cars, it's probably hours. Even for the super charging station, like what Tesla doing, it's probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So you can see that's a big difference. And but hydrogen cars suffer higher costs and risks because of they have a bad product, chemical bad product. That's called a methane. It's actually flammable, so it's easily to catch fire. So that's a higher risk and higher cost. That it's very expensive to do the transportation of hydrogen, because we're basically using hydrogen as gasoline. We have to transfer the hydrogen from A to B, and actually that's pretty expensive in terms of transportation and storage. So higher cost and higher risk would be their cons.
Okay.
And so this will be a very interesting conclusion, that hydrogen will be used for larger capacity like trucks and buses, and electric vehicle will be for like more like a residential or lower capacity usage. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, so let's hope for a more sustainable mobility for all. That's for sure. And thank you so much for being with us today, and wish you the best of luck with your company.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time.